So in this final part of this week's lecture, we're going to cover different ways of joining simple learning algorithms together. So usually those joining and this unification happens without a notice by means of some algorithm implementation. But if you want to understand in particular details of this unification or combination, you'd better to understand topic of ensembling and bagging we're going to cover now. Just that will help you to fine-tune your algorithms. So when we talk about weak learners, so like a decision tree, like we saw in the previous episode, it is easy to overfit and easy to make the model unnecessarily sensitive to the data. So it actually happens with every algorithm. We have to make a trade-off between either trusting and overfit, or do the contrary, instead of using the data, neglect it and underfit our model. And what if we fight evil with evil and have many versions of the algorithm trained on different subsets of the database, so the biases cancel each other? So let's first consider an operation that is going to underline random forest algorithm. It is based on drawing samples from a given dataset. So we have a dataset of n tuples, x, I, y, I, and for bootstrapping, we generate a set of new samples of the same size drawn from D uniformly at random with a replacement. So with a replacement means that we can have the same pair in our bootstrapped sample many times. And once we can get these bootstrapped samples, we can train independent learners on this bootstrap. H is trained on the same bootstrap, and we can repeat this procedure for every bootstrap sample, and then we join those individual learners, just averaging their predictions for a given set of features. This is a very simple approach. So, and random forest add one more complication. So it's based on the one more idea, which is called bagging, and it works in the following way. So at first we pick p random features out of d features we have in our dataset, and then we make a bootstrap of a sample of a given size, where we pick only features from those selected at the first step. And then we train a decision tree on this data, and then we join learners together. And basically, it will give us a more smooth version of the boundary decision surface. Compare how individual decision trees are like more have less gradients, have much rougher boundaries, compared to random forest on a given datasets. So you see that the random forest have smooth boundaries between blue and red. So even for some subregions, it has like a white color where it is unsure whether it region belongs to white, where it belongs to red or blue. So combining those individual learners in such a way using bootstrapping and using bagging allow us to make the model more robust to some peculiarities that might appear in our data. Okay, so let's talk more about stacking generalization. It's another way how you can combine individual learners, and here is the visual illustration. So imagine you have different kind of learners like decision tree, like maybe K nearest neighbors, and neural network. And you suppose that you can correct some mistakes that those algorithms make, and you send outputs of those algorithms to like a higher level algorithm that is also can be based either on decision trees, on some nearest neighbor algorithm, or a neural network. And this algorithm gives us a new predictions. So the simpler version of stacking is called blending, and it works like this. So we partition the dataset into D1 and D2, so it's like two folds, and we train set of models on D1, and then we can compute predictions of those models. And on top of those models, we train one more model using dataset D2. So do you see what can be an obvious issue with this approach? And of course, it is splitting the data in D1 and D2. So like accuracy of the model is wasted or can be wasted because of such inefficient split of the data. And stacking in general is the same idea, but instead of splitting into D1 and D2, we split the partition data into K folds. So it's like happens like in the cross validation. And you train different models on different folds, get the predictions, and send those predictions to a higher level meta regressor or meta learner that produces the ultimate prediction of your ensemble. So for details, I would encourage you to look at the link that explains and has a working model of stacking cross-validation regressor. This basically was the glimpse into the world of ensemble of models, because having more complicated architectures like neural networks allow you to make those combinations much more sophisticated. Just it was an introduction that you can combine individual learners into a more sophisticated and powerful machine by using various techniques like bootstrapping, bagging, or stacking, or blending. And this concludes the lecture that we wanted to And this concludes the lecture of this week. So we covered topics of the model quality assessments in terms of different matrices and in terms of different ways to combine, and in terms of different ways to compute those matrices. And we looked at decision tree based models and ensembles that can be combined on top of individual learners.